Should you create a second LLC for your second business? So here's the setup. You have one LLC for one business, and now you are starting a new business, and you're thinking, should I create another LLC for that new business? Or should I use the LLC I have for my existing business? Most of the time, people will create a separate LLC for a totally unrelated business. And that's because you may want to sell one of the businesses later and you want them separate. You may want to divide liability. So if one business gets sued, the other one isn't at risk. You might want to get a bank loan for one of the businesses and not the other. Or maybe you would have multiple owners in one of the businesses, but you would be the sole owner in the other business. So there are a lot of reasons why you may want to get a second LLC. But what are the reasons you might want to keep everything in a single LLC? Well, a second LLC costs more to set up. If you have payroll, you're going to pay a payroll company for separate payroll. You'll have separate books and financial records. You might be paying a separate QuickBooks fee. You might have separate tax returns at the end of the year for that second business, depending on how you do this. You will probably need separate insurance policies, separate state tax IDs, separate contracts and legal documents. For the government and other parties to respect your two LLCs as separate from each other, they have to be treated separately. And that means redundancy or duplication of a lot of the steps required to run an LLC. So a lot of times business owners decide, I'm going to keep it all in one LLC to begin with because I don't want all the hassle and expense of managing two LLCs. And then later I may spin it off or separate part of the business into a new LLC. So for example, you might think of it as two departments within the same business. And that one department might eventually spin off into a separate LLC. So, should you create a separate LLC for your second business? It really depends on the circumstances. If it's a large business, I would say yes, create a separate LLC. If it's really small and you're not quite sure you're going to do it, go ahead and keep it in the same LLC. Of course, either way, it always makes sense to talk with an attorney and a CPA to kind of walk you through the pros and cons for your specific circumstances. All right, that does it for today. I'd love to know if you find this helpful. And by the way, if you have other questions, feel free to add them in the comments section below. We will grab those and use those for future live sessions. You can also submit questions by email or using the form in the description below. I'm Aaron Hall, an attorney for business owners and entrepreneurial companies. This has been an educational broadcast. As always, all these issues I encourage you to use as topics to discuss with your attorney, not as a replacement for an attorney. This is educational information to empower you to avoid problems, establish a great company, and hopefully have a better life. You can find out more about me at aaronhall.com.